tell you that for some of the people in this room, this was a very uncomfortable experience. I don't know where you are with it. I'm saying to you that there are some people in this room that this was very uncomfortable for. And here's why. Because we have failed to lock in to the made in his image, we let culture define us. But in America, we go one step further. There's a normalized culture, and then there's another culture. Okay? There's a normalized culture that we all just kind of are a part of in one way or another. I'm not going to say it's a good way. I'm just going to say we're all a part of it. And then there's another culture. So what do I mean by that? There is a culture that, all of these words have very clear meaning to. And there's another culture that it doesn't have quite as clear-cut a meaning to. And the normalized culture in America is a white culture. There's a white culture and there's another culture. I told you the conversation was going to change. So let me give you some examples. We go to school. We study history. History. History is just history. But if you want to know the full scope of history, you have to study history, then African American history, Hispanic American history, Asian American history, and you have to find a way to fit it into the larger picture of history. Because there's a normalized culture that's just history. So when you say, I'm going to history class, you know you're going to learn about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, you're going to learn about Betsy Ross, you're going to learn all those good people. You may not learn about Benjamin Banneker. You may not learn about a lot of other people because they're not considered a part of the normalized history. Okay, so let me go somewhere else. There are seminaries that have theology classes. And you go to those theology classes and you study theology. But if you want a fuller perspective of theology, you have to go into the other department and take black theology, Hispanic theology, because the normalized culture is just theology. So you know that there are certain people you're going to study in that normalized theology, and that's acceptable. But the other side of that, it's not part of the normalization. So when you say, I bet we all in this room circle the same thing, I bet it all looks alike. No, it doesn't. It doesn't all look alike. There's another activity where you ask, were you honest when you circled what you circled? Because from a normalized perspective, we're going to all look one way. But if we're honest, there's probably going to be some differences in here. What this conversation is about is how do we navigate that space? Jesus did it beautifully. How do we navigate that space so that we don't normalize one culture over another in how we interact with people, how we share the good news? How do we do that so that it's a normal part of our everyday walk? That's the space we're trying to get to. And I'm going to unfold the rest of this quote. If the journey is disorienting, discomforting, scary, confusing, or disagreeable, white people can go away and go back to normal. People of color don't have that option. You see, it's easy to say, I don't see color. I get it, I know what you mean. But here's what you need to know. I see color every day. I see it when I'm driving home late at night, and I'm the only one out in Williamson County on those country roads, and I'm thinking, I see it when I walk into a store, and I see people shuffle and walk behind me. And I see it when the clerk asks me 3 or 4 or 5 times, can I help you? And I'm going, man, I'm just looking. Normalized culture can walk away. He's not in here, but last week, Andrew Fay pulled me aside and he said, Andrew Fay, if you don't know him, you got to get to know him. He's a really neat guy. So when he was single and moved to Chicago, he decided he wanted to know what it was like to be poor. So he rented a hotel room in the poorest part of Chicago. And he lived there for 2 weeks. And then he thought to himself, this isn't teaching me anything because all I got to do is take out my key, go get in my car, and drive away. You can do that when you're part of normalized culture. You can't do it otherwise. Turn off the camera this